Hello dear chess fans, my name is Kestony, I'm a professional chess coach and today I will share a free lesson with you guys. Today we will talk about finding a plan in chess. I think that Mike Tyson said everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face, but this is not the case in the chess. You won't get punched because the opponent cannot touch you during the game. If they punch you, go to the arbiter or the judge and tell him about the problems there. You're gonna get a free win because your opponent's going to be disqualified, okay? And okay, let's talk about this game. This was a very, very important game for my career because it's one of the examples where Boris Gulko as white played Rajabov, very famous grandmaster with the black pieces, and he simply destroyed the guy. But what's good about this game is that Gulko explains how he finds the plan right out of the opening instead of developing pieces randomly. So let's put some moves on the board. They play this opening, d5, queen d8, kings d8, and now we have like an equal almost position. The problem for black is that his king is in the center and isn't able to castle. Now we think that okay, in the future we will castle and develop with the tempo. So we could say white has an asset in development. He's better in development, but when I give this position to my students, they usually just develop randomly without causing any problems for black. So they would go like this, and then black, on the other hand, also develops like f6, knight e7, knight to c6, or knight to d7. Let's say bishop e6, knight d7. And later on, it gets to the point where black is simply equal. Now, if you want, let me just delete those arrows. I'm sorry I created so many of them. And your exercise is here. White to move. Not only make a move, but I want you to create a plan for white. So imagine this is the game that you are playing. You're having this position over the board and you have to create a plan. Oh my god, so many arrows. I'm so sorry. Okay, this position. So pause the video and think about what's the white's plan here. Okay, so here it is important to find a concrete way to play. When you have a position with an advantage in time, you have to find an object of an attack. And the most obvious object of an attack here is pawn on e5. And once we know which weakness we play against, in any position there is a weakness, but we prefer chronic weaknesses that does not go away. So this could be a pawn square or a king. Here it is a pawn. Then we know where our pieces should go. Now we understand that we want to play bishop to b2, put the knight on c3, then maybe knight to f3 or f4 first, and just put the pressure on this e5 pawn. So Boris Gulko does that, and then black has to counter-react. He has to find a way to defend this pawn. It's not that people just develop all the pieces randomly to random squares like Engine would do, because they based everything on the calculation. Here, black plays bishop to e6, bishop to b2, knight d7, knight d2, and now knight e7. The problem is with knight c4 that the bishop can take, and then it's not good for white. So why don't you pause the video again and search how to continue for white with very great move. Okay, before we jump into the best move, I have to say like castle, for example, knight c6 and f4, it's possible too. And white would later play the wanted move bishop to h3. Bishop h3 does two things. First of all, it exchanges the good bishop of blacks. As you can see, the pawn structure in the center determines the strength of the bishop. So the bishop on g7 is pretty dumb, and the bishop on e6 is good. Whereas white's bishop on g2 was looking at this pawn on e2, e4, and it wasn't great at all. Second of all, now we can put the knight on c4 once the pieces are exchanged. Now, if, for example, they play f5, in general, when you're worse, you should avoid making active moves, especially in the endgame. This isn't that great for black. So let's say knight f3, h6, castle, and with the idea of rook he1, simply attacking the weak pawns in the center. So black decided to take on h3, takes on h3 and f6. And now this prevents knight g5, but it makes the bishop very bad. So white castles and king e8. And now he wants simply to play king f7 and say, okay, I am worse, but I'm connecting my rooks, and I will continue with development and hope for equal position. Now f4, and when you have advantage in time development, you have to create more tension and make the position more sharp, more dynamic. This is what f4 does. So knight c4, knight c6, knight c4, knight b6. You can pause the video here again and think, what would you play here as white? Okay, so taking is very bad because you're simply opening up the file for the rook, and also you're giving a target for black. So instead what we should do is we simply play knight e3. And the knight is heading towards the d5 square, where if he takes, then we create a pass pawn. Not pass pawn, but pass candidate pawn. Let me amend that. So rook d8, knight is coming to d5, takes, and now knight e7. For example, if knight b4, then white can simply play c4, and if you take on a2, then king b1, knight b4, fe5, fe5, and knight g5. And knight is going to that amazing e6 square. Isn't that tasty? Yeah, white is dominating the board. Doesn't matter the pawn. So knight e7 was played here. Now c4, c6, fe5, fe5. And how can white develop the initiative? Well, I'm going to help you here. Because there is the spin, white can come to e6 here with knight, which looks very great. So knight f4, because after playing d6, for example, knight f5, c5, king d7, we get to a close position. And this is bad from strategic point of view, because in close positions, development doesn't matter that much. Whereas white is striving for something opened, where every tempo matters, because black is still undeveloped with the king in the center. So knight f4, fe4, takes on g7, rook g8, bishop f6, and rook f8. And now they have equal material, but white still has an advantage in time. Plus white is going to win the pawn. So because this is a strategic lesson, I don't want to get into tactics. King f6, gf4, cd5, and this is probably the last exercise that I would like to give you. How would you retake the pawn? I want you to base it on the rule, not concrete variation, because rules apply in general 90% of the time at least, but of course you should check if you don't blunder anything. And in general, when you have advantage, you want to exchange pieces, not the pawns. For example, if we take with the c6 d5, then he can simply play rook d6 and or even rook c8, and black is stabilizing the position. It gets kind of static instead of dynamic. And here rook takes d5 is just winning, because white is exchanging one more piece of rook. He's a pawn up here, and white later on won the game. I don't want to show you this endgame as it was pretty still long. That wasn't the goal of the lesson. The goal of the lesson was help you understand and help you create a plan in your own games. So always search for weaknesses in your opponent's camp, especially in the chronic weaknesses that do not go away. And then you will find an easy way to put where your pieces should go. So hope you enjoyed the lesson. If you did, you could also consider hiring me as your personal chess coach. The contacts are on the right. I'm saying goodbye. Stay healthy and play chess.